30 years ago, coming up with this coming meeting was the first meeting that happened at Ears and Barb's house. But do you mind talking, maybe kind of set the stage for that, or talk a little bit about your recollections, as many as they may be, but talk about your recollections of that time in the kind of early 90s into the mid 90s that led to what ultimately came to be as the Collaborative Group of the Americas on Inherited Colorectal Cancer.
Sure. Well, it's somewhat a shady history. We
hopefully shady, not in a bad way.
Right. Well, we knew that it was important, and my original colleague in this was Zane Cohen from Toronto, and some of the people on his faculty. So I learned a lot of different things from Zane, being a visiting professor in St. Louis. There was a discussion with Zane and some of his faculty at Toronto about the importance and the consideration at all of these genetic principles, because this meant treating people who were well for a potential disease. And that was a new concept in medicine and surgery. So the concept of doing a major operation as a preventative in someone who was otherwise healthy wasn't easy to sell. But I think this organization demonstrates that it was important. And there was a nucleus of people to make it go forward.
We were at the original meeting in 1995, and I guess the answer is yes, partly because I was probably the one that set up that original meeting, although we had Ira Codner to thank for hosting it. That was the year that the Leeds Castle meeting was held in Toronto, and I was at that meeting as well, and was inspired to think about setting up a meeting just for the American part of the group that was interested in hereditary colon cancer, because other meetings were being held all around the world, and it was a little difficult for all of us to get there. And so, and there were other uniquely American issues related to healthcare coverage and practices and the way things were set up. And as it turned out, the role of genetic counselors in hereditary colon cancer. So that was the start of the CGA.
In 1995, I was at the CGA meeting in St. Louis as a mentee of James Church, and I have been a longstanding member and attendee of the CGA meeting since then.
That was one of the early meetings that helped launch our society into a period of growth. In terms of the first meeting in St. Louis, what I remember was looking forward to meeting Dr. Codner, as I knew he was a world-renowned surgeon. When I met him, I found him to be very charming, very personable. Actually, it was kind of funny. I had some interesting stories that he told. I don't remember a lot of the specifics at the meeting, but I do know that I do know that there was a lot of discussion on how we were going to distinguish the CGA-IGC from the Leeds Castle Polyposis Group and from the International Collaborative Group on HNPCC. At that time, a lot of the discussion focused on building strong relationships with our South American counterparts that would give us a unique distinction from the other international groups. I also remember there was a lot of discussion on how the recent discoveries in genetics would impact on medicine, prevention, genetic counseling, how to impact the mortality rate from cancer. So it was a very exciting, dynamic time, and I was fortunate to be a part of it.
I would say I've been a member of it since the beginning because I was one of those very fortunate individuals to be present in 1995 when we met in St. Louis. There had been a number of us who had met obviously before that meeting in different Leeds Polyposis group meetings and meetings leading up to the 1995 meeting was one in Copenhagen. I remember James Church being there, Robin Phillips from England, and a lot of other international folks from the US, people like Randy Burt, Patrick Lynch, Henry Lynch, and others. And it was at that meeting and subsequent ones that we realized that we had enough manpower and brain power in the States that it was reasonable to consider having a group that would be based in the Americas, in North America and in South America. And for no other reason but to be able to provide a venue where a lot of the clinicians, scientists, and genetic counselors and others would be able to attend without having to travel far across the Atlantic to Europe. So that was the initiation. I remember people like Ira Cotner, Robert Fry, both were in WashU at that time. David Rothenberger, who was at University of Minnesota, Patrick Lynch at MD Anderson, Henry Lynch in Nebraska. Bruce Bowman was there from Jefferson at the time. Zane Cohen from Toronto with Terry. And I'm sure other people that I'm at this point not remembering. But it was a great meeting, 1995.
I was at the 1995 meeting in St. Louis. It was hosted by Ira Codner, who was a colorectal surgeon at WashU, I believe, in St. Louis. If I remember right, the rationale for that meeting was the sense at that time, which I think continues, that the international working groups for inherited syndromes, which at that time were the Leeds Castle Polyposis group and the International Collaborative Group on HNPCC, which really were directed mainly from the UK in the case of the Leeds Castle group, and in the case of the HNPCC group, their directorate was more or less in Holland. And the perception on the part of many Americans was that the international collaborative groups were too Eurocentric and were mainly just about having an annual or biannual meeting, and that they really were not fostering sufficiently collaborative research on the part of their membership.